downtown Chattanooga, sitting on my living room sofa.
Great, thank you. I see the Harvard t-shirt.
My alma mater.
Mine too.
Ah,
Probably.
undergrad?
Yes.
Undergrad?
Undergrad.
Uh-huh.
Yes, a few years, I imagine, before you.
Well, we'll have a chat offline.
All righty. Okay, I would like the next person, Cindy Steele, are you there?
Hi, Deborah. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
This is Cindy Steed Almeida. I'm calling in from Bermuda. Sorry, there's some background noise here, but just wanted to say hi. Deborah invited me to join. I've kind of been in touch with Deborah for a number of years, and I'm an associate member of the Jewish community here in Bermuda as a sort of mixed race person. And I worked with CURB, Citizens Uprooting Racism in Bermuda, for 4 years and 3 years as a volunteer before that. And so I'm well acquainted with some of the issues that might be discussed here today. And anyway, I'm glad to be here.
Okay. Wait, Cindy, how long have you and Deborah known each other then?
Deborah, I think I've been in touch with you off and on for over 10 years, maybe?
I think so, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if that meant she was a childhood friend.
No. Yeah. I actually kind of reached out to the Jewish community years ago, maybe almost 23 years ago now, maybe 1997, 1998, around about that time. I really wanted to get in touch with them because I always felt a pull and a draw towards them. Who knows? It could be in the blood. You never know.
And Cindy knows that it was my grandparents, great-grandparents, that started really a Jewish community on the island. So it's a pleasure to have you, Cindy. Thank you so much for joining us. So who's next? This is great.
I'll go next. Frank Miller. I'm currently the president at MISPA Congregation. Professionally, I'm a physician, and I know Bill Hicks from a few years ago, and when we worked at the Medical Society, and just glad to be here.
Great, thank you. Who's next? We got some more people.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm Richard Zachary, a good friend of Deborah's and Earl, whose name is down at the bottom right. I'm a retired nurse anesthetist. I'm a board member of MISPA and have a passion for this sort of dialogue, and it's especially important in these current times. So thank you very much. And I'm calling from our house in Brainerd and specifically our downstairs area.
Thank you, thank you. All right, we got some more folks. Chime in.
I'm Alan Richardson. I'm immediate past president of MISPA, currently treasurer. Been involved in the community for a few years, and I'm in my office at home.
Thank you. A few years, huh?
Yeah, for decades.
All right, so now, how about Marissa? Not sure what that was all about, but we need another person to introduce themselves.
Sorry, can you hear me any better now?
Hello? Yeah.
I'm sorry, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay, sorry. My name is Marissa, and I'm coming from my living room in Chattanooga. I work for a company called Informed DNA, but I'm originally an anthropology major, so that's where my heart is.
Great, thank you very much. Let's see, who has not chimed? We can't hear you, Early. That's my hubby. We're having problems with his microphone, so we'll work on it. Let's see if we can. Nope. Huh, not sure what to make of that. Well, anybody else that we have not heard from yet? Betsy?
Yeah, I'm Betsy Temple. I've got dogs barking spontaneously in the background, but sorry. I'm a retired educator, and I'm in my reading room right now at our house in East Brainerd.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else, or did we get y'all? All right.
I just
So,
want to say that I went to look at Monty Brule's campaign page, and I love the picture at the front of it.
hey, Monty.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I love it. Well, we are here at a Black Jewish dialogue that once existed in Chattanooga, especially during Ruth Holmberg's time, who was the former, now deceased, editor of the Times. And it met at Urban League, and it unfortunately has dissipated because people have moved away or passed on. And given what is going on in this world, we thought that maybe we ought to put it together again and get to know each other. And one of the things that I know that Bill and I had talked about was asking each one of you, why are you on this call? What issue with Black Jewish dialogue has prompted you to join us today? So we're going to go around, now that you've introduced yourselves, and ask that question. What one issue in particular has prompted you to join us today on this Black Jewish dialogue? And Bill, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. Well, I was going to try to read you something from, in fact, maybe I can. And it's really historical from my own personal perspective. Let me just say this before the fact. I am a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And as such, I am also very much committed to loving everybody. But I don't believe that it's really possible to have a relationship with a group of people. I think it's possible to have relationships with individuals. And as a function of that, I worked very hard in that area to try to manifest my commission in the context of individual relationships. And that doesn't ignore the fact that there's a lot of, I don't know what to call it, I guess dust in the air in terms of how we look and see and reach each other. But let me just read you something I read to Mizpah before to give you an idea of where my history comes from. This is from my book. It's called Discipleship and Discipline. And this is a portion of the somewhat autobiographical section of this book. As I noted above, I was a really good reader. By the 6th grade, that is about 10 years old, I was reading at the college level. I skipped the 8th grade in junior high school, having been placed in an SP class by my elementary school PS 157 principal, Mr. Bernard Friedman, who's no longer with us. Dr. Friedman had to convince my mother to let me do that. My mother only got as far as the 8th grade in her formal education. My mama was not hesitant out of some envy or sense of envy. She wanted the very best for me. She was not sure that skipping a grade was a good idea because she felt I might not get something I should have gotten. With Dr. Friedman's encouragement, she gave me permission. This guy had a profound impact on my life. He happened to have been Jewish. So from my own personal perspective, you know, from an early age in my development, my interactions with Jewish people have been, in the main, very personal and very positive. So for me to become involved in this dialogue, and that's kind of been consistent throughout my life, I call Deborah Levine my friend, and I'm getting to know Rabbi Lewis a little bit better. So I'm going to call him my friend. And that's why I'm on this call, because I think this is important.
Thank you very much. Rabbi, it seems like he is mentioning you. Maybe you need to go next.
So I think that historically there has been such a strong bond between Jewish communities and the African American community that, and I mentioned in a sermon a couple weeks ago, it's almost like we started to take it for granted, and that I wasn't even aware, because I feel like we tried to do the right thing, speak out on the right issues, build bridges in the community. And I don't think I was even aware that there was any sort of drifting apart until a recent spate of, public comments that were said by, I mean, first it was celebrities, which is easy to brush off as celebrities, but then local leaders and activists in the Black Lives Matter movement starting to make statements that were not only about injustice vis-a-vis the police and the civic government and the state and the American government, but we're starting to make statements that were directly rooted in anti-Semitic narratives and falsehoods, and just didn't know where it was coming from, and that the statements could be made, and it wasn't even just that, is that when then you follow up and try and talk to some of the leaders who were making these statements, that there was a denial that there was anything wrong with the statement, and an actual refusal to even then address it. And based on some other conversations I've had, that there was some of those folks were feeling inadequate to even have the conversation, which is why they were avoiding it. So there's a big picture for me is that whatever drifting apart has done, it's because of what Bill said, is that we've failed to make some of those direct one-on-one relationships and to bring the larger communities back together. So that's what I want to do, is to heal that rift, whatever the rift is, and to make sure that there's education for everyone about the horrific history of anti-Semitic comments, and also that there's no denying the horrific history of things that have occurred to the African American community for 400 years, and so that we have a mutual understanding, because we should be working together, not against each other.
Thank you. Certainly history, understanding it, knowing it, is key to having an appreciation of each other and an understanding of each other's groups, but also individuals. Would someone else like to chime in and comment on that, about the issues that we are facing today?
I think for me, I'm sort of coming at this from a personal level, but also, big picture level. All of the anti-Semitism that I've experienced, personally, has not come from the African American community. It's just the neighborhood that I grew up in was, anyway, so that was, I had personal experiences of anti-Semitism as a child, and then as you grow up, and I began to learn about the kind of issues that our own Jewish community would have with Jews of color, and not being welcome, because I think, again, there's been, like you said, not only a drifting apart of just conversation, but of proximity. So that's why I'm on this meeting, is to again take part in that, creating real relationships with people, and not just some nice words to say.
Thank you. I will share with you that I have been contacted by Black Jews who are interested in maybe joining us. The one person in particular is actually in Canada and reached out to me. She was not able to join us today, but would like to join this kind of conversation indeed, and perhaps next time will. Someone else, please?
Yes, Deborah, Cindy here. I just wanted to say I totally agree with what Craig was saying just now. My thinking is sort of along those lines, that I want to see the rift healed. I want to see the Jews and the Blacks come together, those from the Jewish diaspora, as I call it, and the African diaspora, to really realize that I have this sense in me, although I may not be able to prove it all, that we are one. And there should never have been a rift. I don't know how the rift began and what century it began, but I think that the onset of enslavement did a lot to bring a lot of separation because people were divided up into groups of racial groups of Black and white. And I think that could be where some sort of rift began to happen that was created by the Aryan whites. So, you know, we have to really look at what were the foundations of this rift and where can we go back and heal that rift, because it all stems from lies. From what I can see, it all stems from falsehoods about each other. And so, you know, I'm hoping that, I believe that we're like-minded in this group. And I certainly welcome other like-minded folks to join in as well, Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I think the history is key again. Know that I have put up a page on the American Diversity Report for Black Jewish dialogue, and we can add pages about history. I have added one for arts, particularly music, so that we can share some of our culture together, which I think will also assist in bringing us together. My background being in music and dance, I do that automatically, but the history is key. So I urge you, if you are a writer, and I know many of you on this call are, to perhaps write about these topics, write about the history, write about what you think you're seeing and what we should see, can see. And I would be honored to publish those articles. Now, one of the things that's coming up is in September, the focus for the ADR is education. Imagine that. And I know several of you here on this call have been in education, have been teachers of sorts, and I'd love to hear from you what your thoughts are in terms of education around this dialogue.
I'll go first.
Please.
I think it's really important that we get children in both communities, as many as we can, together, so that, number one, they see each other, as Mr. Hicks was saying, and make those individual relationships. But I know in Birmingham, we used to have a camp, and it was called Anytown. And it was an opportunity between Jewish teenagers and Black teenagers who came from different communities to get to know one another. And I'd love to see us just be able to, I don't know how, but I just think that the story, the commonalities, they need to be, you have to be taught. You know, and you have to be taught from childhood as soon as we can get something in gear.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, the kids are definitely a key element of this. Vincent, if you are there, you do a lot of work with ACT-SO and the African American teenagers, do you not?
Yes, ma'am.
And stories and music and all that poetry and good stuff. Maybe there's a way to, I don't know, merge, blend, collaborate, something.
Absolutely.
Think about it, because the ACT-SO program is, well, first of all, it's wonderful here in Chattanooga, but it's also around the country. Wow, what power that might have.
Between the Jewish cultures and the African American cultures, history and art and education have always been paramount in both cultures. And one of the things that I hope that I can bring to this discussion, considering that I am an extreme fan of Deborah and an extreme fan of your husband, Earl, I am on Team Levine. I am the self-appointed president of her fan club. I've grown to find both Earl.
Wait a minute.
Hey, I'm all over it. Hey, I need a vice. But hey, William, I do need a vice president. You know,
I hear you.
so and I'm stepping down eventually.
I can do that.
Wonderful, sir. And both Earl and Deborah, I consider them professional friends. They have been so supportive of doing so much great community leadership. When we look at so many of the change, one of the things I like to emphasize in the call is that I've always felt that Black Lives Mattered before there was a slogan. I didn't need a slogan to know that Black Lives Matter. And one of the things that the Jewish culture has been, from my experience, has been receptive of change while still maintaining a strong sense of history and a strong sense of faith. The African American culture and the Jewish culture, although there are cultural similarities, I would like to be part of the solution to embrace what makes us unique from an oppressed background, from an ostracized historical background, especially in North America over the last 150 years. So if we can look at alienating a lot of those differences and embrace our similarities, that would be part of the solution.
Amen. I love it. Anybody else want to chime in on that one?
Well, I'd like to respond to that. I had about one of the risks of following such an astute group of people is everything you thought you might want to say, they've already said it. But and Deborah's already changed the dialogue 3 times, if I'm counting right. So I had something ready for the first question, second question. Now,
sorry about that.
Now, daggone it, Vincent's got me thinking about something else. So we're all good.
I'm sorry, Richard. I'm sorry, Richard.
No, it's all good. Real quickly, the first question about introducing myself, why I'm here. My parents of blessed memory, full-blooded Jews from New York City, as I say, were activists in New York City, and they moved to the South to follow business, and they became active in the 60s with the integration. And they always taught me, taught anybody who would listen, that if you're going to be an agent of change, it's better to be on the inside. You have to be on the inside working and not on the outside looking in. So that's been one of my pillars of my adult life, is to try to be on the inside of discussion. And in this particular venue, just to be hearing this dialogue is extremely valuable. The other thing I'd like to say in specific response to what Vincent said, Black Lives Matter is a current buzzword and a phrase, and obviously Black lives have always mattered, but it occurred to me, and I have never said it like this before, but I do a lot of reading about Jewish lives and Black lives, and the thought that has, the problem that has burdened me for so long now, and this may or may not be the venue for that discussion, is why have Jews gotten where they've gotten, and why have Blacks not gotten where they need to be? And one of the phrases that jumps out at me is Jews' lives matter. And I think that's something, if you read Jewish history, which I read a lot about it, both in our Bible and in other texts, it seems like we have always taken care of each other in great matters and small. And I know that's true in the Black community as well, because I do read that, but there's an overriding issues that the Blacks are still struggling where the Jews have succeeded, and it ought not to be that way, and we hope to work on that going forward.
Hey, Richard, this is Bill. Let me help you out with a little something. There's a book that I'm reading now that I think you will find enlightening. It's called Stamped from the Beginning. It's by Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, Ebram X. Kendi, Kendi. I highly recommend this book. I mean, I'm not just for you, Richard, but for everybody. You raised some, for me, significant points about, why or where in the history of African Americans did this situation obtain that. And it's not, I know you weren't making a comparison, but here are the Jewish people over here, and here are the people of African descent in America over here. Dr. Kendi takes this back to the 800s. I mean, we're talking about the days of Charlemagne, and he brings it forward with a very rigorous scholarship to where we stand nowadays. Now, I'm about 2/5 of the way through the book, But even for someone like myself who considers himself a student, there were some very enlightening observations that he revealed about how things happened, especially to Americans of African descent, that, you know, I think will bring into view for you and for everybody else who's willing to read this book. It'll shed some light on the areas of unawareness that you may be experiencing in terms of, you know, asking that question. So let me highly recommend that to you. And when you get it and you want to talk about it, let's do that.
All right, we'll make sure that happens. Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much.
And to add to what Bill was saying, some of you may be more familiar with Dr. Exfindi because he has also written the book. His the book after Stamped from the Beginning was How to Be an Anti-Racist. So if you're reading How to Be an Anti-Racist, you really need to go back and read Stamped from the Beginning, because he released that in 2017. And I remember when it first came out, I said, it's a book. And I as Bill and I, you know, we do a lot of reading ourselves. And one of the things you find out, we're serious Robert Ludlum fans. And one of the things in the Robert Ludlum book was that he tells you if you can't prove everything as truth, you write historical fiction. But if you want to write truth, you write a book, because you've got to verify what you have in there. So Stamped from the Beginning is a book, and he footnotes everything.
Absolutely.
And the thing that is really powerful, like back to what Richard, what you were talking about, is one of the things you find out, because I think even I, being from Chattanooga, going to law school, teaching constitutional law at UTC, and never hearing a word about the Ed Johnson case, never hearing a word where Supreme Court found a Hamilton County sheriff in contempt of court, and he was reelected the next election. I'm from a city that has that history, and nobody was teaching it.
Right.
And so you end up understanding it's not as individual as some of the things may be. The systemic racism didn't start a generation ago. Like Bill says, it goes back to the 1800s, and it's so systemic in so ways. You really have to start asking, how do I identify myself? Because one of the problems, a lot of people who were anti-slavery, but not so much anti-racism, were that they kept wanting blacks to assimilate. I can't assimilate as a white person. As much as, and as good as I want to be, and as wonderful as I think I can try to be with my friends, I ain't white. I can't pass for white. I may want to be all day long. So therefore, some people may say, Ardini, you just had, if you could just be good enough, you could do certain things. I can't be good enough to be white. And some people have to understand that's what this country was partially based on. All the other good, there are a lot of good things that go on, but that's what the country's based on. So, okay.
But Richard, that book, and I think you just showed it, the book, I think, will be a very much of an eye opener for a lot of people in terms of, you know, understanding the experience of Africans in this country with respect to the whole notion of the oppression that we experienced. Now, you know, I want to go back to a point that I heard Deborah raise a little bit earlier about how we, you know, she started this conversation about some celebrities and others talking about how there was this sense that somehow or another the oppression of Africans in this country is more oppressive than the oppression that was visited upon Jewish people. Hey, going all the way back to Haman. Okay, I mean, you know, you got to, if you want to go back that far, you know, and look in the Bible, you can see that there was some serious oppression going on from way back then. That's not the point. The point is not that both of our communities have experienced oppression, and there's never going to be any yardstick that's going to be able to measure which oppression was worse than the other. Yeah. What we need to do is to deal with the source of that oppression and ensure that it doesn't happen again, and understand the common bond that we share in terms of wanting to overcome and to prevent this oppression from ever being visited upon anyone going forward. Now, for me, that starts on the individual level, being able to talk to people, You know, I don't care what you look like. I'll talk to you. You know, and you will tell me, okay, who you are. You know, and because I'm gonna ask you, and I'm gonna get some questions, you know, posed for you that will give us a foundation from which to stand on together. And that's really what I'm thinking about. Now, by the way, Monty Brule, Harvard man, are you still on this call?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, my wife Ardina mentioned Robert Ludlum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's an alumnus, man. He went to Wesleyan. Everybody's sitting there looking, what did he say?
Not Wesleyan of Tennessee, though. Not
No,
Tennessee
I'm talking about
Wesleyan.
the original. I'm talking about the real
Everybody
one.
knows the Tennessee Wesleyan, yeah.
I just said, like Monty and like Deborah, I too didn't go to Yale. So
Okay, but that's what I want. I like that. So that was my why I'm here.
I think I want to echo something that Bill said too, and that, you know, you're talking about the history, and the history is important to know, but right now it's where the injustice is now, where we're living right now, and for me that's the thing that is the catalyst.
But it all blends together.
And
I think that's the weird part is,
yeah.
I'm listening to the current presidential campaign, and when I heard part of the conference, and I'm like Bill, I'm still reading, you know, Stamped from the Beginning, and I'm seeing stuff that's changing my attitude. And no, it's more than a generation ago. We got to go back to, you know, what was happening in you know, right before the Civil War, right after the Civil War. You know, the power that I've seen is that my parents were school teachers in the city here, and my attitude used to be, oh, that was all they could do because they went to segregated schools and there were certain things that happened. But then oh gosh, I don't have the book near me now, but one morning I was up and I heard about how these the Black soldiers went and fought World War I. And I'm going, okay, these people were probably one generation short of being enslaved. How did they end up, you know, having such a patriotic spirit? And what happening was at that time, you know, Plessy versus Ferguson existed. So therefore they were, you know, the rule of the law of the land was, you know, separate but equal. You know, you weren't good enough to go to school together. But these people's, the segregated educational system was able to teach them civics to the point that they understood they had rights. Went to war, came back, and that's what caused a lot of the race riots and the lynchings that happened in the early 1900s, because they came back and they knew they had rights, but people wanted to put them back in a box. So it goes back even before the Civil War, or even close to it.
Hey, it
but
goes
just
to
learning.
before
you look
marriage.
if you look at the process, right, it seems very typical, right, of societies, and I'm going to say that were originally colonized. And I'd like to hear from Cindy in Bermuda, which is still a Bermuda Commonwealth, I mean, a British Commonwealth. And what you're describing, okay, in terms of segregation and difficulties, back then wasn't so long ago in Bermuda. So when I grew up in my lifetime, right, the schools were segregated and people just they didn't go to church together. It was a very difficult transition. And Cindy, can you tell us though, how it was made, even though I'm sure it's not perfect by any means?
Well, like you said, Deborah, the schools were only desegregated, I guess, in my lifetime, which is, you know, I'm not even 55 yet, in 1971. So you can imagine being a colony, and in my understanding, colonialism as it is for other nations around the world, is all driven by racism and control, because you're basically saying, as a larger nation, those people are not equipped or ill-equipped or too childlike to run their own affairs. So I have to come in like the huge nation and govern them. And so Bermuda right now, I would say, is somewhat at a crossroads based on all of the things that Deborah shared, to independence. And we're probably one of the last major British colonies to go towards that. And I know it's going to be a fight, but there are a great many growing numbers of people who feel that the time has come. And, you know, I remember reading some of the background information. I think that in the beginning, even in the 1700s, 1800s, even for the Jewish community, I believe that Jews were not, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Deborah, but were not allowed to own businesses in Bermuda for a great deal of time. Some of them were even not allowed to occupy hotels, similar to the people of color, Black people, you know, in this country. So those things are breaking down, and we have a labor government in power right now, mainly of Blacks. And they are very sympathetic towards the Jewish people here. But we still have that separation even in the schools. We have private schools that are mainly occupied by the whites. We have the government schools that are mainly attended by the Blacks. And so there's also an economic piece there as well that keeps people separate. And I remember hearing, I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about, you know, the understanding of why the Jews advanced and why the Blacks still were held back. But there was a lot of legislation, both here in Bermuda as well as in the US, that were put into place purposefully after Reconstruction, I think, in the US, and also, you know, throughout after 1834, when the British colonies abolished slavery, when it was officially abolished at that time in 1834, there were specific pieces of legislation that were put in place against the Blacks that were not put in place against the Jews. And, you know, even just going back to the race riots in the United States, as much as I can recall, and I think it was maybe 1921 when Greenwood, I think, and Rosewood were burnt down, and Blacks had advanced in Oklahoma to such a state where I believe they had 3 banks, they owned aircraft at that time, and through jealousy or whatever it was, and hatred, I believe there was some sort of false understanding that a white woman was raped, and from there the white mob descended on that town and burnt everything that the people had built. So the Blacks were advancing, but even the advances that they had were taken away from them. Similar to Bermuda, Tuckerstown, around the same time, 1919, 1921, the story, the history of Tuckerstown in Bermuda, I understand that little town at that time is a little peninsula on the side of Bermuda. And there were people who came together and moved those people off of that land who had been there. They believed that they were free Blacks from the 1700s onwards, and they were forcibly moved off of that peninsula so that the white oligarchy could come in and create some sort of Monte Carlo for the rich and famous at the time.
Thank you.
And so these things were done on purpose, and legislation was put in place on purpose to remove people.
Yes. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Sorry for the long diatribe.
No. It's a part of my childhood, but it's also a process that is so familiar. And we here in Chattanooga have seen similar things, right? About the neighborhoods, the schools, you name it. It seems to be very common. And one of the things that I would like to ask people is say we take one issue, is it education or something like that? What can we do in this dialogue to show the world what has happened, and then show the world what might happen if we could improve things? How would we do it? And so I'm thinking, you know, we've seen here the same private schools, public schools, inner city schools, Hamilton County, that Cindy is talking about. What do we see and what can we do? What do you all think?
Deborah, let me jump in here. I've been listening, and I have so many things to say.
Go for it.
And I've just been, my mind has been drifting back to what I'll call the good old days when, you know, I would sit around with Ruth Holmberg and Ken Cantor and talk about the future of Chattanooga. One of the things that maybe is unique about the relationship between African Americans and the Jewish community is that we are joined together by our pain and by our suffering. And it seems to me that we rally around pain, suffering, and tragedy. You know, we come together in Pittsburgh after the Tree of Life congregation shooting, or in Charleston after the Mother Emanuel, AME, church shooting, or even now with George Floyd's murder in Minneapolis. It's rallied us, and we come together and we share our pain, we share our suffering. And I think that's a legitimate part of the relationship. And it's certainly something that we don't ever want to deny or get away from. Where I would like to see the relationship go, however, is to when we can come together and celebrate our mutual and shared greatness, celebrate our traditions, celebrate being friends every day. We should be two communities that are always happy to see one another. We should greet one another with a hug and a smile. And I think that we don't have enough of those kinds of interactions. We don't have enough of those celebrations. So when you ask a question about what the future is, what the potential is, I get excited by the thought that we can expand this group. We can continue to have an ongoing dialogue, but the dialogue doesn't always have to be about our pain and suffering. It can be about our greatness and about our traditions and our history and how we're just going to work together and be a family. To me, that's what the most important thing is.
Thank you. That's lovely.
Well,
I think it's very doable too.
Amen. I saw a thumbs up there too. With what Monty said, I just was thinking about how, and I think I mentioned at the last meeting, that we're at a stage where it almost, well, it is, we have to do it intentionally, like organizing a meeting like this. And because, there is a separation in our community. A lot of us where we're at, we may not have these direct encounters on a regular basis beyond just even professional transactional level. And we need to be at a level where it's more interpersonal. I was just going to say too, I was just reading an article that somebody posted on Facebook that was about the area where I grew up in Kansas City, that I knew of the covenants being established when they were developing the suburbs in Johnson County, Kansas. I mean, I was always aware of it. I was aware that they were forbidden to Jews for a period of time way before I was in the world. And then, but what I didn't even realize is that a lot of those covenants were in place for so long that they then became sort of de facto separation walls. And then the schools, even beyond segregation, there was still a clear divide between which were the black schools, which are the white schools, and Jews were then the first once covenants were lifted. Jews were then the ones that were able to cross over, and I almost feel like it's that times 10 in Chattanooga with the history of Chattanooga. And so, when we moved here, we moved up to Signal Mountain, and I'm becoming more and more acutely aware all the time of the reason why there's so little diversity up here, and the need to be able to create opportunities for us and for my son to be immersed in greater areas of more diversity, because it's that history that we inherited, and some probably more proactively than others, but generally just participated in a history and a changing of things that benefited one over the other, and through no direct malintent ended up just sort of accepting that there was more of these divides going on. And then, how do we intentionally break it down? And I think, Deborah, you brought up education. It's one of the things, especially if you talk to some of the people who are in the administration of the Hamilton County schools, they're like, just being able to have complete school fluidity of where anybody can go to school is one of the first things that they say would start to correct things, rather than just having to fix schools that we've let become dilapidated. Give everybody the shot at the best schools in the area, and also allow more people to be immersed in a diverse school. I don't know. I'm kind of going on a tangent there, but I think that's going to be the answer. Is we have to now, because of the longstanding history, we have to break it down, and to intentionally create areas where we're just in the same schools, in the same sanctuaries, in the same buildings, in the same, and why? To advance social justice causes, to socialize, to create understanding. But
just to be people, to be human around one another. I mean, I think a lot of what we have experienced recently is that we've been grouped into these monoliths that, are, they become almost idols in terms of how we see each other. And those things need to be broken down so that we can begin to start to relate to each other as individuals. Now, just my own personal experience, I see Frank Miller here. And when we had the first one of these conversations, I saw him and I said, oh, I know him. And if Frank hadn't been, I don't even know what to call it. If he hadn't been Frank, I may not have gotten a shot to be the executive director of the Medical Society here in Chattanooga. And I was the only African-American who was a Medical Society executive director in the country at the time. But he didn't see my face and my color. He saw my credentials. And the only way that happened was because he and I came into contact with each other. And that's the kind of thing that has to happen. And we have to have the courage to not put each other in boxes and say, okay, this is a Jewish guy, and therefore I think I know everything I need to know about him because he's Jewish. No, that's not going to work. It's not good enough for me. My attitude is, I'm going to see who you are because I'm going to engage you. And you and I are going to, and if that happens, I got to be vulnerable. I got to be open to you in such a way that you can see me. And then we can begin to start to see each other as persons. And then what Rabbi was talking about can be happening on a larger scale, because somebody's going to come in contact with somebody else over here, and so on and so forth. This group that Ardeen and I belong to, called Chattanooga Connected, one of the principal aspects of it is to have conversations and to be intentional. It's one of the things Rabbi said was be intentional. Be intentionally human. And then let's see where that takes us.
So I have a question for folks. How do you feel in going forward about inviting a few people to be a sort of speakers or panelists about what they do, to get to know them better, and join us? What do you think?
I think that would be awesome. The more the merrier, and I think we can learn from the experience of others.
Absolutely. I think that's where we should be going, I think. I mean, I got a lot actually out of a sermon given at MISPA by one of our congregants who is Black, who converted to Judaism, that now works for URJ, the Union of Reformed Jews. And his position is he is head of diversity. And he talked about some of his experiences as a young black man, how he would get stopped by the police and he would dress up in a coat and tie so that when he was stopped, that he wouldn't get shot. And he said, even dressed like this, twice,
That'd be good enough.
Twice, he had guns pulled on him. And I'm thinking, I know this guy. He's a nice guy. He wouldn't do anything crazy. And when I heard that, that made me open my eyes to the issues that he has had to deal with. And I thought that was very enlightening. Yeah. And I think having people to talk about their experiences. I've talked to my neighbor, Clark White, Deacon Blues. Anybody know him? Anyway, he told me when he was growing up in Chattanooga, all the times that he was stopped, just driving down the road. And I'm thinking, I don't understand it, but why? Why was he stopped? He said,
DWB.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
All right. Well, one of the things that strikes me about what you're saying, Frank, is that the stories that people tell are so impactful. And Richard, you had a note up there on the chat room about how to share this with others, and the stories are really key. So we're going to wrap up here in a few minutes, but I would love for you to go into the chat room, each of you, and write down some people that you think we ought to invite to join us, to share their stories. And so we'll have some record of it, because I bet there are a lot of great people locally and not so locally that would be helpful and also energize a whole bunch of folks as we grow, because I want us to grow just like you said. Absolutely. So if you would take a few minutes, each of you, and share in the chat room some names of people. And I'm going to put one down myself.
Deborah, what, can you talk and listen at the same time? I know you can.
Yes. I
I
can.
definitely want to nominate Frank's neighbor, Clark.
You beat me to it. I was just trying to put it in.
I could listen to Clark read the phone book.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I'm curious about, and maybe I missed this in other comments,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe is what is available, if Rabbi knows this, what's available or what's ongoing, I should say, now in the school system to promote Black Jewish dialogue?
In the school system?
Yes.
Like Hamilton County school system?
That'd be the one.
To promote Black Jewish dialogue? I would think that's nothing, because I don't think it's on their radar.
Well, why that seems to be a problem.
Well, I just think that that's not their focus as part of the public schools. I think they're just trying to do basic education. But I think that, I mean, you know, my son going to a magnet school, there's opportunities for dialogue all the time. I don't know that it's a direct intention within the schools.
There are Bible classes that are taught, but it's an outside thing that is supported in. So this could possibly be an outside thing coming in. I
have resisted at least the one opportunity I've had to present in one of those Bible courses, because I'm not a huge fan of
well, I'm talking about doing something separate.
It'd take a lot of funding if we wanted to actually be in the school. But could there be a club? I don't know. I mean, like, you know, how that works.
That would be a diversity club.
Yeah. I mean, I had envisioned down the road, you know, doing a travel thing together, perhaps, you know, where we go to DC and we visit, you know, the Holocaust Museum and then the I forget the exact title of it.
The Museum of African American History.
Thank you. Museum of African American History, and visit those things together, or go to Birmingham and visit together. All sorts of places that we could do. But I would envision a travel series, perhaps.
That might work.
Figure out this COVID thing. Yeah.
I'll get the restaurants.
I'll bring your own
We'll
lunch
go mostly
back.
to your restaurants. One Jewish deli. We'll just get one Jewish deli.
No. We're gonna have more than that. No.
I object to the delis. I had a bad experience once with my children and my husband. He got to New York, went crazy, bought these huge sandwiches. My kids
Why do you want to bring that up?
Yes, I want to tell everybody. That's my only problem when you
don't blame the Jews for the big sandwiches.
Carnegie Deli.
Well, okay. We'll get you a good matzo ball soup. Everything's fine.
All right.
Okay, that's my issue. I just confessed, so I'm okay.
All right. Just so you know, when I came to this country, I turned fighting. I love it. Thank you. Oh, somebody make a note, Vincent, of that.
I wrote it in the chat, but this was the book I was talking about the World War I soldiers and coming home. They returned fighting.
Excellent. What I will do is I will put up a list of books. If you'll also, you can send those to me by email, or if you are part of our Facebook Black Jewish Dialogue page, which I urge you to do if you're not already, you could start to list resources, books, whatever you think would be helpful. I think that would be a great idea. That's what it's for, to give people a sense of possibilities that they could read or see or hear. All good.
Yeah, we can also have somewhat ad hoc book club type situations offline, and we don't have to do it all here, where if somebody reads a book and they want to discuss it or recommend it that if somebody else read it, they can discuss it. I'm looking forward to that opportunity with Richard around Stamped from the Beginning.
I love it.
So, we can do that. Let's do it.
And also, please use your library. I'm listening to it. I think Bill's listening to it, an audiobook from the library, and I check mine out from the library too.
Okay, so that brings up an interesting point. We are going to be in this COVID environment for a while yet. And as much as it would be wonderful to meet in person or to travel to New York City and go to a deli, maybe on the Lower East Side. Ask me why I say that. Yes, indeed. Anyway, what do you think my daddy did when we first came to America? The first thing we did was we went to a deli. Anyway, it's another story. So given that we are at this time a virtual group, let's make the most of it. Use the Facebook page, put down the books. Let's start reading. Let's come together. We have another dialogue set up in the third Sunday, I believe, of September, and I will send that out too. But the links will come from Mizpah, the synagogue, rather than me, but we'll share them all. And let's see if for our next meeting, right, we can expand the group by inviting all these people, and maybe we will have someone new to speak also. But let's make sure that we can, thank you, Monty, for putting down your email address, that we are able to connect outside of this group through email or on Facebook and trade notes. Some of you, I give you warning, I'm going to be following up on the suggestions made today, and I'm sure others will be doing the same. That's what this is all about. Ooh, Jonathan Sarna, Deborah Lipstadt. I'm sorry, I got carried away in the chat room. Let's go for it.
Hey, Deb. I just typed into the chat room, the third Sunday in September is Rosh Hashanah.
No.
It's the second day of Rosh Hashanah, but I think we should probably.
Probably not do it.
Oh,
Okay.
it is the
second day of Rosh Hashanah. So for most of the people in this room, won't matter.
Okay, that's right. Never mind.
But
I
if
don't
we
know.
wanted to invite anybody that was in the conservative or Orthodox frame of mind, which nobody in this room is that I can see, that could be an issue.
So let's change the September date just in case and go for a different day. Is the following Sunday?
Yom Kippur.
It is. That's not going to work at all. You want to go earlier?
The
second?
13th. The
We
13th.
could do break the fast together.
That's a thought.
The 13th is the previous Sunday.
The 13th. I don't have my. Shall we try that though?
That's fine for me. That's fine for me. I'm going to write you in my calendar with pencil.
Okay, I'll double check.
Same time, 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock. Yeah.
Well,
So,
thank you. For
before
those of you who
we,
this is the first time I met, look forward to seeing you again.
yeah, this is great.
And Vince, and offline somewhere along the line, I'd like to talk to you about maybe doing some things together, because I teach the high school age kids, or I'm coordinating the class. So maybe we can do something together.
You got it, Greg. I put my email in the chat. Just contact me, sir, please.
All right.
Oh, yeah, and please don't forget the guy who wrote that we were talking stamped from the beginning. How to be an anti-racist. He has also a kids version of that. I think it's a
Nice.
what do you call those, gothic novel or graphic novel? Yeah,
Gothic. Right? It's a
I
comic
have a
book.
question for you. Does anyone know how to record the chat room? Get it written down or something?
You can save it, I think.
I think it saves with your meeting. At least that's what I think my daughter said.
Okay.
But I am not the one to ask, so don't. I am not the one.
Let's see if
Doesn't the host have certain privileges, Rabbi?
Yeah, I've never explored that actually, so I can't tell you. I don't know exactly.
all right. Well, I tell you what, if I have any problems, I see who you are.
Here, Deborah, if you give me a minute, I'll take a series of screenshots and then I can make sure that at least we'll have those if nothing else works.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Screenshot 1. Scroll down is after the word don't. Sorry.
Okay, so while he's doing that, is there any other questions or comments to wrap up?
Keep us updated in what's going on in Bermuda. I think that was real exciting to hear that.
Certainly. I'd love to do that.
Okay. Deborah, I have screenshots of all the chats. I'll send those to you.
Excellent. And Cindy, go ahead and invite our Bermuda friends to join us in the next one.
Certainly, I will do. I'll be reaching out to them this week.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I hope that you'll go and sit for a few minutes at Horseshoe Bay for me. Take a shot or two of it. For those of you who have never been to Bermuda, someday you're going to get there and you're going to go to Horseshoe Bay and you'll know what we mean. All right?
Yes. You're all invited.
I always stay away from the triangle.
Okay.
Thank you all so much. This has been
Thank you.
wonderful. We're going to look forward to expanding our numbers and our efforts to make a difference. And I know it's going to be wonderful.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Deborah.
Have a good week, everybody. Stay healthy.
Bless everyone.
Bye.
See everybody.
Blessings.